This week on the GameCritics.com podcast, it's all things Atlas. From localization strategies to the future of the Persona series, we have the inside story. And of course, everything you need to know about Demon Souls. Hey, these headphones give me +5 to sexiness. The GameCritics.com podcast starts right now. Welcome, everybody, to episode 23 of the GameCritics.com podcast. I'm your host, Tim Spaeth. We have your beloved full cast on board, including Mr. Chi-Kong Liu.
Hey, everybody.
Brad Gallaway.
Hey, guys.
Mike Bracken.
Sorry for missing last week. I had to get drunk.
Always a good excuse.
Hard to blame you for that, sir. Certainly will not hold that against you. This week we are thrilled, indeed ecstatic, to welcome as our guest from Atlas, Aram Jabari. Aram, welcome to the show.
Ecstatic to be here. Thanks, guys.
We are devoting the entire hour to Atlas, of course spotlighting next month's big release of Demon Souls for the PS3, and we will get to that in a bit. Aram, when we have guests on, we usually ask our readers and listeners to submit questions, and for the typical guest, we might get 2 or 3 emails, posts that trickle in, but when we announced that we had someone on from Atlas, it was a flood of questions. A lot of love, some tough questions as well, but mostly a lot of love. So you're in a warm, friendly place here.
All right. Well, sorry about all the questions. I had everyone in the office, in our office at Atlas, send those all in. So that's all from us.
Perfect. So for our few listeners who may not be familiar with Atlas, mostly right now I'm thinking of my mom, who doesn't play games and really only listens for Mike Bracken. And Mike, you probably didn't know that, but...
I didn't. I'm very flattered, though.
Yeah. Aram, give us the 20,000-foot overview of Atlas for those who aren't familiar. What is the company's mission, their mandate? Give us a quick history lesson. Who is Atlas?
Sure. Well, Mrs. Spaeth. So Atlas is everyone's favorite JRPG niche publisher, and I say that not just to say that we only have published Japanese RPGs or we're only known for Japanese RPGs, but so let's do the overarching thing. Atlas USA is the privately owned subsidiary, the U.S. branch of Atlas Corporation Limited in Japan, and the Atlas, the USA branch, has been around for close to 2 decades now. This is a company that has slowly, I would say for 15 years or so, there was just a very, maybe a little longer than that, or a little less than that, excuse me, a very slow progress, but for a long time we were very, very under the radar. And then in recent years, with a few titles that again developed by our parent company and released to critical acclaim, but obviously again it's a niche genre, Japanese RPGs. If you've played Final Fantasy, and I say that for the completely uninformed listener, we're talking about that kind of game. But Atlas, we've had some distinct qualities to the games that have made them stand out, and so for again, next close to 2 decades, we've been around, and slowly in the last few years, I think we've become more and more defined by a publisher of games intended more for the enthusiast or the hardcore gaming audience, primarily role-playing games, RPGs, primarily of the Japanese RPG flavor. So you have more. I guess you could say menu-driven combat, for example, and maybe more linear storytelling, but more focused storytelling than some of the larger open world Western RPGs. And of course, along the way, we've had other big franchises that have been successful for us. Trauma Center, first originally on the DS in 2005, was a big hit for us, and it's turned into a franchise. And we've branched out as well. We now have an Atlas Online division that's working on Neo Steam, free to play MMO. And so the company has evolved a lot in the last few years, but we are for the most part defined by our most fervent and dedicated fans by the Shin Megami Tensei franchise, also abbreviated SMT or Megaten, if anyone's heard those and wondered if it's referring to the same thing. And the hits in that series would be Nocturne, the Persona sub-series, Devil Summoner games. We've had some recent spin-offs on the DS that have been great for us, Devil Survivor. And we're a company that, like I said, we're evolving, and we seem to have actually hit an exponential up curve in recent years in terms of fan awareness and growth. But we're kind of defined by that hardcore RPG niche.
Talking about your fan base, you refer to them maybe as enthusiasts, loyal, passionate. There really isn't a fan more, and I hesitate to use the word rabid, but that's the word I think of. You have some of the most dedicated, loyal fans in the industry. We
are the luckiest company in the video game industry because, I'm going to use an example. Working Designs is still to this day, years after having to close their doors, when people talk about a Japanese RPG coming overseas, coming to the U.S., and they talk about localization, and some publishers picked it up, and maybe it's an inexperienced publisher, you go to the message boards and you look at the thread for that game, and the first few posts will always be, I miss the days of Working Designs. Fortunately, we're lucky we hear our name in those posts too, but Working Design, it's one of those things where maybe it's the fact that we haven't put a watch in one of our collector's edition yet. Maybe that like pushes you over the edge. But we have a fan base that has stayed loyal to us and dedicated to us for, again, close to 2 decades. They are so adamant in message boards and discussions about spreading word of mouth. And I mean, we don't do the gangbuster numbers of the huge publishers in the industry, but we always have been steady, and we've had this nice growth in recent years. And it has nothing to do with the PR I do, or we have a really talented marketing team. I exaggerate, but really our fans continue to drive that. And when one of our games, and we're so lucky to have talented developers in Japan, but when we get a game like Persona 4, that came out at the end of 2008, and we're able to release that. And I mean, the kind of scores that game pulled in, it couldn't not expand the franchise and reach new gamers and kind of open things up for us. I mean, it was a PS2 game in late 2008, but we're so fortunate to have fans. To all the Atlas fans listening, we endlessly appreciate how you guys have stuck to us, with us.
I think you guys deserve a little more credit, because I remember back in the SNES days, localization was a really funny thing, and so some of these companies would just like destroy some of these games. I mean, they would just mangle them to death, so that by the time they got out to the United States, you wouldn't even recognize them. So, I don't take that for granted that you guys are doing a very dedicated. You're maintaining the integrity of the game and all that. So,
don't get me wrong, and in a second I'll explain exactly why we're so lucky we're able to do what we do. But I mean, in reality though, think of all the YouTube videos we would not have if those terrible attempts at bringing something. I mean, you sent us up the bomb, if I'm quoting that correctly, or they sent us up. No, we have a really great setup in how we've structured ourselves as a localization company. Everything is done internally. And we have a team of editors and translators who are all gamers, who are all incredibly versed in both Japanese culture and the culture that the gamers would associate more with here. And I think because we've created this organism where all these parts work together correctly to come out with this end product, we're able to do things that seem very natural. And I think in the last few years, we have much more faithful localizations than we've ever done as a company in terms of, an example, we have Persona that just came out again for the PSP. That was originally in 1996 a PlayStation 1 game that had a lot of dramatic changes done. And most of the folks at Atlas were not at the company when that game was localized and released, but a lot of changes were made, and I think most of them reflect just differences in expectations and what the customers wanted and what a company should do when they localize a game.
So let's talk about that process. How do you select which games get localized for U.S. release?
Sure. Well, it's for speaking for Atlas. I'm sure other companies have other ways of doing it. We look at everything. The company, top to bottom, evaluates the products that are either available for us to look at, and obviously we have talented developers at our parent company back in Japan that we obviously have an opportunity to look at all of those titles as well. And the evaluation process, again, almost everyone in the Atlas building is a gamer, and that it endlessly positively affects the final product, from the cover art to everything, to the localization. And I think that's one of our greatest advantages is when let's take a game that's coming out in a week and a half or so, Demon's Souls for PlayStation 3, and we're really excited about it. But that's a game that came to us, if I'm remembering this correctly, before any formal discussions occurred, one of our senior production managers, Sami Matsushima, who is currently actually ended up being the lead for this game in terms of the localization and bringing it over, he brought in an Asian copy of the game, and we all took a look at it. And at that point, he was really excited about it. And this is a while ago. And so we all actually kind of took a look at the game, and myself personally, I was excited that what looked to be a innovative next-gen RPG that was very different from a lot of stuff that had come from overseas was something that we were taking a look at. And we go through an evaluation process. Folks in the game play the game as thoroughly as they can and in a set amount of time, and we have discussions, and we have discussions where it's exactly what you'd expect. It's a bunch of people from different aspects of the company, whether it's from a localization standpoint, it's from the marketing standpoint, PR standpoint, sales standpoint, sitting around a table and talking about what's this game's viability. How do can we market this game? Who do we sell this game to? How big is the audience? What kind of? And then of course we project. How successful, what's the benchmark for success, and we see if we can structure something that'll make, can we be successful with this product in North America? And it worked out very, very fortunately for us in the case of Demon's Souls that we were able to obtain the rights to publish that game in North America. And a lot of times, are there scenarios where you can't get a game? Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes maybe the conclusion is that, and it's the reason that a lot of games that fans they clamor for, and they'd love to see it come over. Please bring this game over or that game over, and we have it in our message boards, and we get emails. And the thing is that a lot of times they can't happen for licensing reasons, kind of technical legal reasons. Sometimes they can't happen because we say to ourselves, we don't know if we can be successful and profitable with this title in North America. We know that there's fans who are following it and would love to buy it, but are there enough? And we've survived for a lot of years by being a very efficient, conservative, lean operating company. And what I mean by that is that we don't build a ton more of a game than we expect will be demand for. And a lot of times fans have complained that there's just way too little Atlas product, especially some of the major hits. Nocturne, for example. I can't find Nocturne. It's $80 on eBay, $120. It's ridiculous. But a lot of that is us not trying to undercut. It's us trying to hit exactly what the demand is. So the whole evaluation process, top to bottom, we go through that, and sometimes we're lucky enough to get a title that we really are excited about, and sometimes it doesn't work out. And a lot of times fans hate us and send us vitriol for not doing a certain game, but it's a lot of times we may have actually gone after it, and we just couldn't do it.
With such a limited resource, as you say, right? I hope I'm not characterizing that incorrectly. Um, how exactly do you go about like decide? I mean, the way you talked about Demon Soul, it was like one of your guys just brought it out there. Was it really just completely that random, or how do you even go about cherry picking these things? And once you go through that process, is it ever like does it ever get competitive as far as having to fight other publishers for those rights?
Well, in the case of Demon Souls, I'm not sure I'm remembering it 100% correctly, but it was actually the catalyst for our process of taking a look at the game. I do believe I recall correctly, it did start that way. And that's a little bit of a fun fact right there. A lot of times, like I said, we're all gamers and we're all very involved in game industry news, and we follow. We have a lot of Japanese-speaking staff who, obviously, whether they're translators or they're leads in production, and so they follow a lot of this stuff. And sometimes it does actually come down to just catching word or catching wind of something that's being released overseas, and then there is a whole process that we do have to go through as a company, and a lot of times it involves liaisons overseas, and we're talking about going after the rights to publish a title, so it becomes obviously a process, a negotiation process. And are we having to fight other publishers? I am certain that there have been titles, and I can't think of any in particular that we have either picked up and there were other suitors or contenders, or a title that ultimately Atlas didn't publish and it did go to someone else. A title I remember recently, and I don't remember, I don't think the specifics were ever divulged. It's not an Atlas title. Muramasa, Demon Blade. I know. I saw you guys had a review on it recently. That one was originally, I believe, coming over courtesy of one publisher, and then it changed hands. And there is competition for quality games coming from overseas. That market and the publishers here, I think it's definitely expanded. I think the hunger and the audience, the community has really grown in terms of number and also their level of interest in getting more product from overseas and less changed, less altered. And so there are more publishers who are in that game now.
Do developers ever approach Atlas? Does it work
in
reverse?
Sure. No, absolutely. I don't want to make it sound like it's all us just going to import stores and just pick. Hey, this looks like a good game. Let's pick this with Demon Souls. Huh? I wonder what this one's all about. There are a lot of situations like that, and fortunately, we're a company that we've been around for nearly 2 decades, and we have. Again, I'd like to say a lot of this is thanks to our fans, but we have a very, I'd say, positive reputation from everything I see. I see our brand perceived positively in the industry, and my job is to not screw that up, and I hope I'm doing that, not screwing it up. And so it comes down to I think that's one of the key attractors for a developer. For any developer looking at any publisher, a lot of it may have to do with how that publisher is perceived, and does their type of game fit with that publisher's reputation or following. Obviously, it's more of a consideration with us having such a strong RPG fan base, but we've done titles that were outside of that. We did Trackmania DS, which I thought was a really quality racer. I wish I had gone on a little bit better here. I thought it was really well developed, but it just didn't really catch on here. But we've had a lot of products and situations where maybe things have come to us and it was because of our brand or because of something else.
So 2 decades, a long time. Industry has changed quite a bit in 2 decades, certainly. Slight tangent here, but something we didn't have 20 years ago were ratings aggregate sites, your Metacritics, your game rankings. How do you feel about those taking such a prominent role in the industry?
Well, that's a really tough question, especially so because I'm in the field of public relations.
Of course.
There's been this very interesting series of events, and it's ongoing, and I won't name any specific incidents, but there have been a lot of incidents that seem to have defined and matured. Let me start by prefacing the industry in my mind is still very much in its infancy, and I think that comes up in discussions about games. You know, I loved Mass Effect. I'm going to throw it out there. A game, discussions about sexuality in video games, and I think a lot of games are still perceived as toys in some way, and I think in a lot of ways, the gaming industry is still in its infancy. We're still the perception of gaming as a mature or at least a broad spectrum entertainment platform is still catching on, and in the last 20 years, things have definitely changed. There are a lot more internet. I mean, just the internet, obviously, but there are a lot of sites now that weren't a few years ago that have changed the nature of things. As a PR person, there's good and bad in just even outside of the meta sites. Focusing on the focus on score becomes such a double-edged sword. So take, for example, again, I'll drop the name out, Demon's Souls. For PS3, so we're seeing really, really great critical reception so far for Demon's Souls, and in every aspect of promoting the game, whether it's promoting the game to our fans or it's promoting it to our retail partners or it's just trying to get the word out, if you have great critical reception, great press, you're going to try to leverage that. It's that you see the trailers for games that come out a month or two after the game ships, and they have all the Game of the Year awards if they the game had won it, or it has Editor's Choice awards. Obviously, there's tremendous value in leveraging positive word of mouth. On the other hand, it does tend to become a distraction from what might be other worthwhile merits for playing the game, and also I would argue that there's really no 100% accurate way of a review system for evaluating a game and being able to either recommend it or analyze it to everyone. I think it's a pretty fair statement to make. It's impossible to have a review system that caters to everyone, because maybe there's someone who loves that kind of game. There's someone who likes roguelikes and likes dying over and over and over again. That's not me.
That's me.
But see, the thing about those sites is that I absolutely refer to them, and you hear the people in the industry referring to the aggregate sites, and you see a lot of the blog sites that are updating day to day when a game comes out, a big high profile game. They'll do their own aggregate post that posts everything in there, and you have all the comments that flood in, and it seems like if a game gets out of 100 reviews, let's say out of 50 reviews, it gets 30 A's. It changes the perception of that game dramatically, and people start talking about it differently. And then if you get a game that's got maybe more of an average spectrum, whether they're all mid-range 75s across the board, or whether you got like a bunch of 90s and a bunch of 60s, I think things change a bit, and it becomes this nebulous area where I think maybe people don't give the game enough of a chance. And I don't know how to fix that. I mean, I don't know what you do there, but I've missed out on games. There were games that were not reviewed that well, and I played that game like, there's a joke around the office that I don't put cartridges in. It's kind of like a weird thing, but I don't like putting a cartridge in cartridge-based systems. Really low-rated cartridges. Not maybe subconsciously I'm worried about some sort of game transmitted disease. We're talking like 30 and 40% aggregate. It's kind of a silly thing to say. I guess that, along with my game smelling fetish, probably I should have kept to myself.
Oh, the new game smell?
New game smell.
Yeah, so, I love new game smell.
Who doesn't love new game
It's
smell?
The best.
New manual smell, new art book smell.
Yes.
But in our line of in our business, the business of promoting a game, you have to take advantage of those, and you have to pay attention to a site that takes all of the scores and all of the reviews and combines them, because when you're talking about a business, and this industry in the end is a business, there are different aspects of this industry. Again, whether it's customers, whether it's retail partners, whether it's other publishers, they want to get that sum up. I'm a busy guy, sum it up. You go to that site and you see the number, and it's kind of sad, but the number ends up I guess that's what I was trying to say, summing up the game. And sometimes I think gamers miss out. I think sometimes it's really hard to and I again, I don't know what the solution is, but those sites really have changed the game for sure.
In a perfect world for a ROM, would you want to see ratings just go away or not?
In a perfect world, and I don't know what the system would be. I'd love for a system that is. I really don't know, Chi. I don't think the industry can do without. In my perfect world, probably I'd love for people to evaluate games, because when I talk about like classic games that I've fallen in love with as a gamer, and I go back to early PC gaming. That's where I got my start. I don't talk to people about scores, and I'll never say, oh, this game would be a 92 on such and such site today, man. I just try to explain to them exactly what made that game so effing awesome. Of course, if they don't agree with me, then I slap them across the face, and that's the end of the conversation. In my perfect world, of course, we'd have much better discourse in that situation. But I don't think the industry is going to be ready to move away from that anytime soon. And you see websites and magazines changing review formats from numbers to stars back and forth, trying to find some system that doesn't offend publishers, doesn't offend, it maybe better informs the end reader. It's really difficult to assess where that's going to go. But in my perfect world, I think, I would like games to get, I guess, more of a chance outside of that. Well, it got a 70 on such and such site, forget it.
So while we're on the topic of low ratings, I got to ask you this: as a publisher, what goes through your mind when an Atlas game gets a low rating? Like, is there?
We have the advantage of publishing games that when we sit down and we're talking about the game, we acknowledge it as a niche product. We consider ourselves, hopefully, maybe we're able to continue to grow, and we don't have to use the word niche so often, because honestly, it may be the second most said word in our office, next to some profanity, from some really hard game that our QA testers are working hard to get all the bugs out of.
I know this is a tough question, so take your time there.
Well.
It's okay to say raw, unbridled anger. It's okay.
Well, it's a lot of things go through our minds. It's myself personally, I do, especially if it's a title that I personally wouldn't give that score to, or I couldn't understand anyone giving that score to. Of course, I'll get upset, because it's like your baby. You nursed this, even if it was developed by another company. We have brought this product into our loving bosom, and it's our goal to get as many people aware of it and get as many people to try it as possible. And there are times, that we've had games where we acknowledge from the beginning that the audience for this game is smaller than some of our other titles. This is not a trauma center. This is and we've had some great series that we were able to put the Atlas name on. I'm happy Atlas was able to publish the Izuna games, but the 2D roguelike is a very hardcore genre, and take it a step further.
What was that game? What was that game again?
Izuna, the unemployed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, not only is it a very niche genre, but it's also on the DS, which is a huge user base, of course. But what percentage of the audience is hardcore? And there's a lot of hardcore gamers that own a DS. But probably the ratio is a lot more balanced than it would be on earlier consoles and earlier in the industry. So I do get very frustrated when a game it doesn't really gets that one clunker score, and sometimes I think to myself, did they really not like it, or were they just maybe trying to be that really low score to stand out? Because that has to go through the mind of a PR person. Maybe they're trying to give it a 3 out of 10 so everyone comes to their site. But no, the only thing that really bugs me in those situations is, well, we still believe in this game, but this is going to affect our ability and the ability of the game to be at least, tried by more people. And we've had games like that where we thought they were just crazy innovative. We were talking about this game earlier. We did a game on GameCube a long time ago, maybe like five or some years ago. I wasn't even with the company back then, called Cubivore. And Cubivore, interesting style. It visually, even at the time, a lot of people slammed the graphics, but it had a really distinct style. It wasn't trying to be photorealistic. Really innovative gameplay, and we even to this date, we would have loved for the game to have sold more, but I don't think anyone in the company is upset we put the Atlas name on it. We were really proud about that game, and I feel that even from the people who are still there, who were involved in bringing that title over. But sometimes you get some scores that, the person just didn't like it. And, sometimes the person just really didn't like it. Not every editor out there is going to be a fan of hardcore role-playing games or strategy RPGs. And I guess it's unfair to expect that every time you put a game out there, it's going to go to exactly the same editor with the masochistic streak that loves that kind of game.
That's why they all come to me, all the dungeon crawlers and all that stuff. Brad just says, "Hey, Mike, this is for you. It's from Atlas," and that's the end of the discussion.
If it looks slow, tedious, and painful, Mike Brad, here you go.
Hey, wait a minute.
Hey, Ram, I got to ask you, though. I mean, kind of an aside, I actually did the review for Cubivore, and I gave it a very positive review. I liked it a lot, so I'm glad that you guys back in the day brought that over. I had a good time with it. But I got to say that even though you guys have a really, really good streak going, I mean, you guys in general, you pick way more winners than you do losers, and, your library is one to be absolutely respected. But, every once in a while, one comes out from Atlas where I'm like, man, what were they thinking? This is kind of, it kind of puts me aback a little bit. And I wanted to ask you, you guys definitely have your head screwed on right. I mean, you guys know your market, you know your product, you're very brilliant about what you do, and I give you total props for that. But is there ever a time when a game comes in and you guys internally are just kind of split? Like, do you ever have half the team going, I love it, and the other half going, maybe not so much? I mean, is it always like everybody at the company is considered it's a win before you move forward, or do you roll the dice sometimes on certain times?
No, sometimes there is the shades of gray. And don't forget, there are times where it may be a title that we like the title, and maybe we think it's rough around some edges, but we think that there's an audience here that wants to play the game, and we're happy to put the Atlas name on it. But it also comes down to the bottom line that we think we can be profitable with that title. And I mean, that always has to be a consideration. No one at Atlas, as much as we love games and we love our fans, I don't think any of us will go into an evaluation session of a product and say, well, we're really thrilled to sell this title at a loss because we want to get it out there. I mean, that would be the second to last. The next meeting would be us thinking about how we could get a watch in the next collector's edition, and that would be like we put ports on the windows. No, we've had titles that were. I can actually remember a few. I can't go into specifics. I remember a few that myself personally, I was thinking, and it's not. I don't believe we ended up doing the particular title I'm thinking of. So it's not like we can go through the library and guess which one it was. Well, I wasn't particularly feeling aspects of the game's the marketability here. There are a lot of games that are very, very saturated in Japanese culture, and either it's going to be a very extensive localization, or we have to hope that the audience is ready for that. I mean, one of the games I actually really like that in terms of its being like absolutely dripping, saturated with Japanese culture is a game we have coming in November called Kenkabancho, which we lovingly tagged the subtitle onto Badass Rumble. I hope you guys don't have to bleep that later. And Kenkabancho is a series. There have been a few of them in Japan. This is the first one that's come over, where you're really just a badass Japanese street thug. You're like on your high school, like a school trip, and you are going out to be. And bancho basically means, it actually kind of rhymes with honcho, and to me, there's a synonymous meaning. Kind of being in charge, on top, king of the hill. And so that game, I mean, really, really steeped in the culture. we definitely had discussions about, is this game too Japanese? I mean, is the on the PSP, is the audience there? And but a lot of times, yeah, there's shades of gray, and in the end, there is a really good reason for the game to come over. Whether it's, there's maybe a small audience, but we believe we can be profitable, or there's a big audience for this game, and it may not be the Atlas kind of game, but we were confident in it. So I think the one thing I can say with confidence is we've never come out of as one of those sessions thinking, well, this game is absolutely rubbish, and we're going to throw it out there.
Can I follow up to that really quick?
Sure.
So you mentioned earlier that a lot of fans may feel that your games vanish off the shelves too quickly. I mean, that's usually kind of the tagline. If there's an Atlas game coming out, I mean, I personally go around telling people buy it on launch day because you're not going to be able to find it afterwards.
Pre-order because they'll get one copy of it.
Exactly. I mean, I remember looking around for Devil Survivor, and it was the day of launch. I had GameStop telling me that they were out and they weren't expecting any more, and that was it. And I never even saw it hit shelves. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of wondering. I know that you guys have. It seems to be pretty rarely done second issues or something. I mean, I can only think of maybe one, and I may even be mistaken. But with the advent of download services coming out, I mean, how are you thinking that a lot of your titles are going to have a lot longer legs now that you don't really have to fight for shelf space or worry about physical product?
I think so. Well, one of the things that it's going to change, retail's not going anywhere for a while. It's going to be very interesting to see how it evolves, the ratio between digital download, how prevalent it is, especially when you're talking about consoles. I think PC, we're going to see the push maybe even sooner because of how well certain platforms are doing, digital download platforms. Of course, we have this advantage where now we don't have to worry quite as much about too many copies on the shelf and we're going to have to pay for that later, or way too many. We don't have to worry about building precisely to demand to stay lean and efficient. We can obviously have a means for the game to be available long after it's been taken off shelves, and people will have a chance to try it. I don't think the distribution systems are quite there yet to make it a non-issue today. But obviously, yeah, we have no aversion to. We're really excited about all the possibilities that digital distribution bring to the table, and we hope whatever means we have to bring whatever titles we've had in the past, any of them that we can. Obviously, we'll try to. I mean, we are running a business, and there's profitability that we can get out of that, of course. But also, we're able to take games that people consider classics, and we're honored to have games that people consider classics, but we can't really get those into people's hands that easily anymore. It's nice to know that old games don't have to die. As kind of just an aside myself, I mean, I grew up, like I said, on classic PC games, and now there's one site in particular, I won't name anything specific, one site in particular that caters to good old games. Well, I may have just done it right there, and they actually cater to these old games that I can't find anymore. They're just way overpriced if I want to get them on eBay. It's so awesome to not have to worry about that anymore. And it's almost a sickness. I've got 15 unopened games in my cabinet right now. There's something wrong with me. But
that's small time compared to who you're talking to, man.
Well, yeah. I mean, you guys get a lot of games too. But as you know, the thing is, I worry that how am I going to? What if one day I want to show someone how unbelievably awesome the original Fallout is from Interplay? How do I do that? And then I can still get it. I don't have to worry. Easy, done. I like the idea of games that were worthwhile, that were meaningful and defined something, anything. I mean, they had a place in the in the industry, and there were people who loved it. They don't have to just disappear into nothing, because there are games right now I would love to play again. I don't know when I'll get a chance to. So yeah, it's hopefully we can do as many of our games as the technology allows, as soon as we can. We'll see how that process goes, and hopefully it changes. We don't have fans in the future complaining that they can't find our games, because that's like the worst thing for us. We can't just reprint like 12 copies. We'd love to, and we're not sitting on some stack of Ogre Battle 64, or we don't have some huge archive where we're like laughing and eBaying those off one at a time and like making tons of money. We don't have any copies ourselves. So
that must be Atlas myth number 1, right?
Well, there went my question asking for a copy of Dual Hearts later. Damn it.
I may have like an open copy if that's a genuine request. I can go and take a look.
Oh, sweet. Yes, that's one of the few I'm missing.
Too. That's a good one.
Well,
You had that question written down, right, Mike?
I did. I was like, oh man, I gotta slip Dual Hearts in there somewhere. It's like one of the few Atlas games I'm missing. So.
And now you're like, oh, we got it recorded. He said he's gonna give me one.
Oh, did I say I would give you one? I meant to say I would sell you one.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Nice.
out.
and I also noticed, Mike, you left that question out of the show notes so that none of us
did.
would ask it before you.
Yes, I did.
Very slick.
It was my Pearl Harbor for this show.
So
I actually wanted. Sorry, I want to ask. Go back to the localizations thing for a second. Was there ever a game that you guys were totally surprised at how well it did? Like you weren't expecting it to do so well?
I think. Let me think of a few off the top of my head. The original. Well, Persona 3 was a title that came. Wow, that was a long localization for us too. I joined mid-localization for that one, and joined the company. And I think it took about a year and a half for that one to come over. I think we were very surprised at how that title was received critically, and it ended up being very great, very good for us. I can't say a title like Odin Sphere, which we got to be known for, was a surprise. I think we were all really, really excited for that one to come out, and I think we kind of all knew that was a really unique title at a good time. The timing was right. But as for surprises that, it's hard to say. It looks like Persona, the remake of the '96 classic, it's definitely critically being received better than we expected, and also we're thrilled with how the localization turned out. All indications are that it's going to be really solid, and we just didn't know. We didn't know how people would look at a 13-year-old RPG. Older than that, if you look at when it came out in Japan, I think we didn't know how. It's the mechanics, the game design. You could use the word dated, although if you say it to my face, I'll slap you. But I mean, it's simple. It comes from a older time in the industry. I was kidding about the slapping thing, but it also still is very fresh compared to a lot of role-playing games, because I think what made the earlier Shin Megami Tensei RPGs made them catch on in a time where it was really niche, was how mature and interesting and intriguing the narratives were, and the characters were, and the philosophy and the mythology that went into it. So that's actually one of those things that I'm a little personally surprised. I was expecting a lot of folks maybe to rip the game apart for being what it is, a 13-year-old RPG, but I think a lot of people appreciated the opportunity to play that game again, and the changes that were made were just almost all for the better. Some people would argue about the soundtrack, but I love the new soundtrack myself, and not to pimp it too hard, but every launch copy does come with 2 soundtrack CDs, the full soundtrack. Sorry guys, I had to sell something there.
So in a moment, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll talk about Demon's Souls. But Aram, as I mentioned at the top of the show, our listeners had a lot of questions for you. And a major category of question was, when is X game coming out? Now, these are questions you probably get them 10 times a day. I'm sure you're sick of answering them. But hopefully you will be kind.
I will entertain it.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Now, the bulk of these questions revolve around the Persona games. So I'm just going to clump them all together, and then you can break some big news when I finish. So here's what we have on Persona. Our listeners would like to know, number 1, will we ever see Persona 2 Innocent Sin? Will we get Persona 3 Portable released in North America? Will we see a Persona 4 expansion, something like Teddy's Quest? Will we ever see, and presumably we will, I'm hoping, a next, or I guess now current gen console SMT installment? So pick any of the above and just shock us, bowl us over.
Or I will be an absolute dick and I will answer them all at once. Let me say this, and this is going to be as close to a a podcast resume for a politics position as I could possibly do, because I'm going to dodge the hell out of some of this. Let me put it this way. First of all, one thing for fans to take note of is you'll almost never get an announcement of something Shin Megami Tensei from Atlus USA before you hear it in Japan. So that, I think, eliminates a couple of what you mentioned there. If it's going to, I mean, you'll hear about them first. If we're wondering about the existence of something, if we're wondering about when something's going to come over, out of everything you listed there, there's nothing I can talk about at this time. I think it's a pretty safe assumption that when a quality game in the biggest RPG franchise that Atlus has is created, obviously we're very excited if we have the chance to bring it to North America. There was one what was the last one you talked about? What was the last question?
Well, there was the current gen SMT installment, and then before that, any news on a Persona 4 expansion?
There was one after that, I thought.
Was there one? There was Persona 3 Portable, Persona 2. I think those were it.
Oh, well.
But if you're thinking of something you want to announce, go ahead, do it.
Here,
I
yes.
don't have anything to discuss about any of that stuff. The bottom line comes down to here. You know what it is? I think I remember what I wanted to address. I wanted to address the questions of a next gen, or I guess now it becomes current gen, which makes me kind of sad for my GameCube. Let me put it this way: the SMT series, the Shin Megami Tensei games, are. I've said it this way before. I said it once this way, and I was misquoted, and I was so pissed. Please don't cut this up. It's very unlikely that the series is going to end, and it's very unlikely that if the series was to continue, that it would not find its way to North America. I mean, I'll leave it at that. I just who knows what the future brings for the series. Obviously, any chance we get to bring a quality SMT game over, we get excited to do it, and they have all been so mind-blowingly good. It's one of the reasons the company Atlus USA has been in business for close to 2 decades, is because we have a tremendous stream of unique, distinct. I don't want to say genre defining, because they don't end up reaching, I think, a large enough audience, unfortunately, to do that. But in terms of story, a lot of people who played other games in the genre and they end up playing an SMT game, it kind of leaves its mark. Anyways, I know I dodged a lot of that. I really do. I apologize to you guys. I apologize to the listeners.
But I appreciate excellent dodging technique, and that certainly was that. So
level up. Plus 1 to my dodging ability.
I commend you, sir. There was one other game that one of our frequent contributors, his handle is Boy. And this to me is incredibly obscure, and so we'll see what you do with it. But he had this to ask. He said, Koji Okada, who is the father of the Shin Megami Tensei series, left Atlus in 2003 and formed the development company Gaia. Stay with me. He writes, Atlus localized Gaia's first game, Monster Kingdom Jewel Summoner, in the US. Gaia's second game, Coded Soul, was released in Japan about a year ago. Given Okada's past relationship with Atlus, the assumption was that its localization was assured, but nothing has even been hinted at. He wants to know, where is Coded Soul?
No plans for Coded Soul at this time. It's never ever 100% a sure thing that a title will come over. Let me throw out a scenario. Let's say let's make it totally generic so this can't be misquoted. Let's say privately owned North American-based subsidiary company A, let's say B, gets a title from parent company A that is so steeped in it's unlocalizable. That's what everyone said. Well, it's not a given that the game's just going to turn up in North America because there are connections there. I hope that's a fair way of saying it. So it's never 100%. Oh well, there's this connection's there, then this must mean that this game's coming. And I say that because I get bummed when we can't really comment on something and we have fans that really want something or they're speculating about something and they want to know when it's going to come. It's really difficult for us to just come out and say, well, such and such is never going to happen, ever, in a billion years. Good luck. Freeze yourself. It's not going to happen. We don't want to do that ever in any scenario. But there's some times where maybe the game just can't happen. And I think the safest way to go is just wait for us to announce it. When we announce it, then it'll come to North America. I mean, that's the way I think about it. It's going to piss a lot of listeners off.
Essentially, don't stop dreaming is what you're saying. Always believe.
I hear a song. I feel like a song coming on. There you go.
It's like Journey time.
Yeah. I'd like to hear the top five things that make a game unlocalizable. If that's possible.
I don't know if there's a top five. I will tell you this: if there are, I mean, let's. Here's a few examples of things that can be really tough. A huge cast, let's say 200 different characters, and they're all like big name folks overseas in terms of voiceover. Then that becomes a challenge from the beginning because we're gamers. If we're looking at a game that's really popular because of a lot of the talent that's in it, and for some reason, let's say we can't include that talent in the game, well, we have to look at everything. We have to look at it all over again. I mean, what if it's not going to be the exact same thing? How will people react? That can be a deal breaker sometimes. And there are. I can't think of too many specific things where I've heard it and I've just thrown my hand up and stormed out of the room. But there are aspects of a game that can make it difficult to market. Sure. A game can be, I mean, if we're talking about like a horse racing simulation, or it's a game where you find 2 million different ways to decorate your dog, I guess, although that sells here, your pony, well, that sells too. Interesting. Well, I mean, there are very, very specific things that could make a game difficult to market. I'll just leave it at that. And, you want the game to have, you don't want it to just be potentially a critical success. You want it to be a sales success as well in order to continue to be able to make games. So,
sure.
Sounds good. Well, why don't we take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk Demon's Souls. Sound good?
Sure.
All right. Stay with us, everybody. We'll be back in 2 and 2.
Here's a way, kind of breathe out, face reality, never be charity. The enemy you're fighting covers all society. Can't run, bombs down here, gonna fight all night. Right here, shadow 10 o'clock direction. Seize the moment, then destroy the nation. You run slow motion, give me motivation. Dig out now, and then on your rifle. Round up around, sit out, all over. Rhyme like a rolling stone, come in the crowd. Watch out the moon, that this too loud. Just watch this down, and bombs hold round. Surround up, don't ease your pace, cause enemies brutal. Moment of truth, there ain't no truth. You're the only one war, one lord. But the battle goes on, shadows all mass destruction.
Oh yeah.
Well, we are in the midst of what I would call a pretty big time for Atlas. We saw the release of the Persona remake for PSP just this past week, and upcoming on October 6th, the release of Demon's Souls for the PS3. Aram, tell us about Demon's Souls. Let's start with that.
Oh, Demon's Souls. Where do I start? It's amazing. I've given this spiel so many times, and it's one of those games, much like the game itself, I guess, the actual act of playing the game. You kind of never get tired of it. But Demon's Souls is an action RPG developed by From Software, known, I guess, maybe best for their Armored Core series. Talented group of developers that a lot of their stuff has a cult following, but I guess maybe Demon's Souls can be one of those games that really helps grow the From brand here in the States. It is an action RPG that takes place in the kingdom of Boletaria in terms of story. The king, hungry for power, has awakened a powerful demon called the Old One and unleashed a curse on the kingdom. So things are shrouded in fog and darkness, and you are the latest in a series of adventures that have gone in to deliver this kingdom from its curse. And from the very beginning, things start off in a ominously bad way where you I don't want to spoil the tutorial for anyone, but you do die at the end of the tutorial. And we've played up the difficulty, but it is a game that challenges the player to master and to strategize and to learn. And the controls play very much like, even like a Zelda, I'm comfortable to say. You have a lock-on camera. You have two kinds of attacks, so a normal attack, a strong attack. You've got your shield. You can customize your character from 10 different classes. And the interesting thing about the customization is that the classes determine your starting stat distribution and your starting equipment, but really any character can be taken from that point and evolved into anything. A barbarian that casts spells, knock yourself out. Facial customization is very in-depth. It is a dark, gritty, medieval-style action RPG. For me, it immediately evoked thoughts of Elder Scrolls Oblivion, The Witcher, and Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, to name drop a few. The online functionality is you are within your own independent world, and there are a number of other players who are also playing their single-player game within their independent world. And when you're connected to your PlayStation Network account, your worlds are able to bridge, and you are able to have interaction, not beginning to end, start to finish, from every phase, cooperative interaction, not you jump out of the game and you go to a menu and you have some sort of matchmaker system, and not like that, but more a seamless integration of your world with their world, and these online features. Everything comes back to enrich the single-player experience. So as a single player, as a game, so you're entering the world and you're clearing out one of the first areas, and you see bloodstains on the floor, and you interact with the bloodstains, and the bloodstain shows you a red, translucent ghost of another player, and it's the last few moments of their life. So for most people, immediately you'll get a little bit of schadenfreude, you'll take a little bit of joy in someone else's misery, but then you'll actually realize that you can learn from their mistakes. And they charged down a staircase, and their translucent ghost immediately was, speared. And, of course, you'll laugh even in that situation when you're learning from it, because it's hilarious when someone gets pwned like that. But you watch them go around that corner, and you're like, well, I'm going to slow down and take it easy. I'm going to be cautious. Someone died around this corner. Someone died in front of me in 5 seconds. And then you have these messages where it's like a strategy guide woven into the fabric of the game. The bottom line for Demon's Souls is that even if you play the game and you think it fails, that it's too hard, it tries so many ambitious things that I would suggest to anyone who's turned off by what we've said so far about it being a difficult game to just give it a shot, rent it or try it at a friend's house. It is one of those games that when you get over that hump, and for some people the hump is different, it's at a different point, but when you get over that frustration level initially, it becomes one of the most satisfying and rewarding action RPG or role-playing experiences you'll ever have.
Hey, Aram, I'd like to just kind of add to what you said. I mean, I've been playing the game for quite a while since you sent out the early release copies, and I agree with pretty much everything you said. But I think the thing that is probably the hardest sell for the game, and I heard you describe it several times, and as I'm listening to you describe it, I mean, you probably know the game more than most of the people out there. It's interesting to me that one of the best qualities of the game, and to me what made the game such a standout, is one of the hardest to define things, and that is the sense of immersion that the game gives you. Now, you tried like 3 or 4 different ways to explain it, and you did a great job, but even hearing that, it doesn't quite capture what I see as the best aspect, the most interesting, the most powerful aspect, and that is the sense that you are actually playing this character. I mean, it asks for a lot more buy-in than the average RPG does. I mean, for starters, because you can never pause the game, and that right there gives you a really I mean, it makes you
Right,
sit up, it makes you
right.
pay attention, it puts you on edge. You know that there is no such thing as I'm just going to hit start and go get a drink or whatever. I mean, there's a little bit of a negative to that because, some of us do have kids and families and wives, and that's kind of a bummer when that happens. But when you get yourself an hour or two where you know you're not going to be interrupted, there is something really intense about that. And I think also the thing that's really intense is that the game is hard. Yeah, it's hard. But I think that it's not as hard as people make it out to be. And in your particular case, I think you're wise to kind of oversell the difficulty so that people aren't surprised by it. But I remember when I got my copy, I was really bracing myself to die like all the time, and I was, ready to throw myself into a meat grinder, and I wasn't really feeling good about it. And then once I got into it, I was like, oh, it's not hard. They just don't want you to be stupid. I mean, if
Right.
you can put yourself in the role of the character, like really immerse yourself in what it means to play this character. If one of us woke up one day and we were in a fantasy world and there was demons and monsters and stuff, I don't think any of us would pick up, a dagger and go charging into the fray screaming and expect to walk out with all of our limbs intact. I mean, it's nonsensical. And so the way that the game asks you to really slow down, think about what you're doing. Does this make sense? Do like a logic check before you enter each room. I mean, it's totally refreshing. And to me, it really sold the game. I mean, I don't know if people listening right now have checked out the review on the site, but our review went up a couple weeks ago. I gave it a 9.5, and there was just a few really niggling things that kept me from giving it top marks. But I mean, it's really a top quality game, and for those who don't know, it's at this point it's number one in my Game of the Year nominations. I mean, something that comes along later in the year may topple it. It may not, but I mean, regardless, it's from my perspective, one of the best games of the year. And if nothing else, I want people listening to this podcast to really understand that you just have to kind of change your mindset. It's a really different kind of game. It's not a game where you bust open every vase and you look for like power-ups and you just die and reload and it's no big deal. I mean, you really have to kind of change the way you think about it. And immersion is not something that grabs you right away. I mean, everybody I've talked to who played the game for like 15 minutes walks away and says, this game sucks. I didn't like it. It was too hard. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't hit an enemy. It was awkward. And then I go, okay, well, number one, you're not giving the game a chance. And number two, this is like a slow burn game. I mean, you can't play a game like Demon's Souls and see its greatness in 15 minutes. Like, it's one of those things that you really have to kind of be willing to sit down, be open to it, give it a chance. And if you're willing to do those things, I mean, I agree with you. I think it's incredibly rewarding. Really fulfilling. I mean, really satisfying on so many levels. I mean, I've played a lot of games. I mean, I've been playing for a long time. I played a lot of games, finished a lot of games. And this is a game where immediately I sat up and I'm like, whoa, this is totally different from anything else I've played before. This caught my attention. It made me sit up and take notice. It really got me interested. And it takes a lot for games to do that these days. I mean, I take a lot of, it's kind of a sick pride in that I'm so jaded sometimes. I mean, I get a lot of razzing for it, but this is a game that cut through all of that jadedness and is really a quality product. I mean, I'm just endlessly pleased that you guys brought this over. So I definitely think that people listening should absolutely give it a chance. Like you said, rent it, but if you rent it, don't just play it for like 10 minutes. You got to play it for like at least an hour, 2 hours. You're going to die a lot, but stick with it for sure.
You said it a lot more succinctly, and you said it a lot better than I said it. And one of the things I realized, I've been playing it a lot, trying to, we've been playing it just for the listeners. Another piece of fun trivia. We have had an early, it's final build, but for a little while we've had a build out that is actually kind of almost beta testing our North American servers, and we're going to switch over the server because the games use a slightly different product code. Getting a little technical, and we have to switch the server over so it's looking for the retail version, and so the press copies are actually going to stop working soon. But so I've been playing as much as I can with folks, editors around the gaming press as much as I could, and I found something very interesting happened in playing Demon's Souls. The first time you play any of the areas and the first time you're experiencing the game, it is again, what you said, immersion, and there is the sense of discovery, and it's not so much because you're exploring. I mean, a game that's an open world RPG, it's non-linear and all that stuff, is allegedly supposed to give you more of a sense of discovery. But in Demon's Souls, you become conditioned, especially when your conditioning from other kinds of games changes, and when you don't just charge into fights, and because you'll be punished for that. But if you do slow it down, as you say, you start to look at every hallway, every turn, you just look at it, you analyze it, and you're playing it exactly how you'd play it if you were there. I think you said that very well. And the thing I'm finding now is that I'm doing the same areas over and over again, and I've memorized the areas in Demon Souls better than I've memorized the areas in games for a very long time. When I go back and I play all-time classics like Link to the Past or a Super Metroid or I mean I remember the levels, and I remember it so vividly. Some of it was because of what point in my life. I mean, it's nostalgia and all that stuff, but it's been a long time since I played a game that I remembered. My brain was going into this slightly different mode where I was memorizing everything, patterns, and you adopt this. It's not just an attitude of develop. It's you're trying to master, and it's not like the game. You have to do that or you won't enjoy the game. That's just a process that happens when you stick with the game for a little bit. And like I'm playing these levels now for the 5th, 6th, 7th, 20th, 30th, 40th time, and it's weird because it's like it's deja vu. It's like you're walking, but it's I don't know. For me personally, and obviously I'm being. I don't want to say I'm paid to say all this. That's not why I'm saying it. That's aside. Just think of me as Joe Schmo. In my personal experience with the game, you just think about the levels after you play it. It kind of sticks with you differently than other games.
Can I jump in there, Ram? It's actually interesting, really interesting you say that, because this is actually a trademark of From Software's other series, King's Field, and the way Brad described was earlier describing Demon Souls was almost like the exact same description of King's Field, right, Brad?
Totally. I'm actually really glad you said that, because I was actually going to ask if you're going to bring it up. But yeah, you're totally right.
No, and I've played all the King's Field games, and they're all huge, and they're not done in the third person perspective. They're done in the first person perspective, but they follow a similar RPG theme. And in all these games, they're huge, long, sprawling, exploration type adventures. And in every one of those games, from the PS1 to the PS2, I've never ever had to use a map. Like I've never had to create a map, refer to a map. I remember every single stage and the layouts of them, just the way you were describing Demon Souls. So it's just really interesting that lineage. I don't know what it is about how these guys figure that out, but and I think it has a lot to do with the way they view architecture and the way they view stage layout. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I support everything you're saying, Chi. It's exactly right. And something I'd like to add on to that is I think that when From is given free reign to kind of do things the way that they want to do things, like the Kingsfield games are a perfect example. I mean, they have this brilliant, natural way of creating these like logical, believable levels. I mean, I remember having a really good time with the Kingsfield on the PS2 and just being in awe of some of the things that they have the player go through. And it's the exact same thing with Demon Souls, only taken to like an entirely different degree because, just because the horsepower is more available and they're able to put more detail in the levels and things. But once you start one of these levels, it's not like any other level that you've ever played, except if you played Kingsfield, and then it's just like Kingsfield in the most positive sense, in that you feel like it's a real living, breathing world. There's a logic to it. There's a believability. You can really mentally get into the feeling of exploring, and the sense of immersion is just phenomenal. I really can't get over it. I can't get over it. So fabulous stuff. But Ram, I want to ask you a few other things about the not the gameplay so much, but about the business side of Demon Souls, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I know that there is. Coming. Okay, great. I know that there's a really strong presence overseas for Demon Souls. I mean, you kind of mentioned that's how you guys caught wind of it in the first place. And I know for a fact that a lot of people here in the States have already imported their copy, whether it be from Japan or Korea or whatever it is. There's already like a ton of people. If you go to the GameFAQs boards right now, I mean, there's like a ton of people who can answer any question about the game, who played it back and forth, finished it multiple times. And I'm kind of wondering, what is Atlas's feeling about what the audience is going to be? I mean, I know that you guys know your audience really well, but more so in my view that this is a game that has been imported more than the average, I think. So are you afraid that your audience is already kind of cannibalized by the fact that this game was so easy to import due to the fact that there was a lot of English voiceovers and text in it already? Are you guys nervous about that?
Not at this point. That was a consideration that we had from the very beginning when we were evaluating the game. We knew that there was a version of the game that was almost entirely in English, and whether there were instances of English in the localization or not, it was playable. And so we announced it as quickly as we could when we knew that we had locked on to the licensing the publishing rights to bring it to North America. I do believe that more so than possibly any other game that our company, maybe any other game in the industry's history, the imports business may affect the bottom line for this game just a bit, just by virtue of the fact that one of the reasons. But see, it's another double-edged sword, because that same word of mouth and that same, like, you have to import this. I mean, the reason so many people import it is because their friends told them on forums and gaming sites, you have to play this game. It's so amazing. It's so different. It's so innovative. And it's so we, on the one hand, we benefit from that. And we benefit from how we knew that from the beginning. We had a game with a very vocal community. Even if someone had imported it and they didn't want to double dip, and they would have loved to even, but they just couldn't afford it. And times are tough still, so we of course understand. But at least we knew that those people they're gonna be vocal about it. Word of mouth is one of those things that is almost impossible to manufacture. No matter how many gimmicks or ploys you come up with, I think it's impossible to manufacture. Our audience, gamers in general, they smell bullshit a mile away. And so I think as a publisher, and this maybe hopefully we've almost always done this, we're honest and sincere about stuff. And so our hope is that with Demon's Souls, we have a group of gamers that they're just assessing the game. We haven't tried to we haven't lied about what the game is, because aesthetically the game could be sold differently than it is. It could be marketed. If we were a bigger publisher and we could do TV commercials, we could make the game look, wow, damn. The person who would play Madden and Call of Duty but would never really touch an RPG, not that there aren't people who play all three kinds of games, they may really perk up and say, that looks like Lord of the Rings, that looks really cool. But we've been really pushing the fact that the game will punish you if you come in with a certain mindset. We've been really honest about the game because we want to leverage that word of mouth. We want people to talk about it. So yeah, is it possible that the bottom line will be affected slightly? I think so. I think the one good news is that the import business is still a very small percentage of the final stuff. I look at the DS, for example. You've got a lot of games that I think probably maybe the most imported game on DS, if I'm going to just guess, or a couple, would be Uendon and Jump Superstars. Just a couple. I'm just going to throw them out. I don't. Of course, well, Uendon's a pretty bad example because they changed everything when they released it here, and they never released Jump Superstars. Terrible examples. But the point being that the number, let's say those games are really talked about and there's a really great amount of buzz, it's still a very small percent in the end, at the scheme of things, that bring it over. So I think we're confident we announced it early enough, and we're doing one of the things that we're doing to mitigate that. Here's another great opportunity for me to go into sales mode, is the deluxe edition, the introduction of a deluxe edition. And we always try to do special stuff for our games, but for just $10 more, we are going to add the outer slipcase that's nicely ribbed for his or her pleasure. It's embossed rather, and the strategy guide, 160 pages, full color. It's really a fantastic guide, and for almost the cost of what it would be to import it, you basically get the definitive version of the game. So as soon as we were able to get that out the door, we knew if anyone's really interested in the game and they want it so badly they can't wait to import it, that's like 0.001%. So we're based on the kind of great buzz that we've gotten so far. we're not losing any sleep at all over that.
Okay, well, let me ask you this then. This Demon's Souls is kind of an unusual title in another way, and that is that, I mean, the game isn't even released yet in North America. It's coming out October 6th. So, like, nobody who's not in the media has had a chance to play this yet. Yet, when you go to Metacritic or some of the other aggregate sites, there were already, I mean, like, when I got my copy in the mail, there were already, like, a dozen, 15, 20 reviews from the other versions. As a company, was that a special challenge to kind of get your message out with all of these reviews already being out there? I mean, did that create any kind of problems? Because even though a lot of them were positive, not all of them were.
Well, if it was all, it would be different if it was all like 4s and 5s. It really would. Even the reviews that focused on things what the reviewer found to be a negative, they in the end, it didn't play a large part in anything. But right now, I actually do think it's an advantage. And again, it is that double-edged sword. I would say the majority of those reviews were positive, and positive, not just kind of average positive. They were positive of the sort that we're kind of starting to get now as reviews roll in for North America. And sure, on the one hand, you don't want anything out there affecting people's opinions of the game, but on the other hand, again, it's that existing word of mouth that's driving things. And I mean, this game, it could have come over earlier in the hands of someone else, but the fact that we were lucky enough to be able to publish this title, we're really honored to be able to publish this title in North America. It means that maybe there were concerns that based on those reviews, it's just too hardcore. It doesn't. Well, Atlas is. I put it in Alta Vista earlier. It actually translates to hardcore. It's amazing, isn't it? No, I'm kidding. But we have that association with our brand, and there's nothing in any of those reviews that I saw that would make me say, well, this is kind of already out there. Maybe we should talk about this. This was the kind of game that had the kind of word of mouth and buzz you can only dream of, and you can pay no amount of money to create. So it's a perfect fit for Alice, the company that is lean and mean and obviously smaller publisher. Why not? It's perfect to have people who've already spread the word.
I actually had a question about audience as well, but not so much what Brad was talking about as regards to the import aspect of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know if you got a chance to listen to our last episode, but we just talked, about the difficulty in games and how games are becoming easier to reach a larger audience, and this game just completely defies that logic in every which way possible. And you sort of touched on it on some ways, but when you just talked about this a little bit, are you sort of hoping that like the Atlas fans, the diehards, are going to be on board and somehow miraculously, you'll get some sort of a mass following it all? I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, let me answer two ways. I'll answer this question. As a personally as a gamer, I have noticed a trend in a lot of the series that I grew up with and I've fallen in love with in the most recent iterations, where I had to spend way too much time at the beginning being explained things that even if I had no idea how they'd mapped certain controls or how I could figure it all out, because basically whatever game I'm talking about, they were making the same damn game again with slight improvements. Of course, I still bought it and loved it, but whatever game I could be talking about. But I've noted, the industry is growing. And growth is fantastic, and the spectrum is undoubtedly there's a shift towards the center, and it's great. There's more and more people playing games now than there have been. The demographic is changing, but I think it's analogous. Atlas as a company is the microcosm I hope for in the future, where we, no matter how many ways we've tried to grow as a company, and we've had great franchises that were different for us, like Trauma Center. We have not forgotten and will never forget where we came from, what we're about, and what our fans expect from us. We know you can do a bunch of stuff to grow you as a company, but if you are really at your heart something very specific, you abandon that at your own peril. And I really think that just because the industry is expanding in such great ways, it doesn't mean that we have to abandon the hardcore gamer. We don't have to add 2-hour tutorials to every game. It's nice to have a tutorial. I mean, Demon's Souls does have a tutorial, and I personally think, I read a review recently that didn't like the tutorial, thought it was inadequate. I think the tutorial is the perfect immersion and the perfect introduction to the game, but it's very subtle and understated compared to a lot. I mean, there's an example. There's a staircase you can go up in 1-1 in Demon's Souls in the first region of the first Archstone, where you can make a right turn and kill a couple fairly easy enemies, and you're up against a fairly powerful mini-boss with glowing red eyes and a pike who will kill you in one hit, maybe two. If you go left, you'll find someone who's more at your level, and it's the game doesn't warn you. If you go, you could instantly die, and you'd be like, well, based on that encounter, I have no chance of beating that other guy. What am I supposed to do? Well, the game never tells you you're supposed to just, well, I come to the conclusion I can't do that yet and go do something else. Did I start on the spiel about tutorials and games and all that stuff?
Yes,
Probably.
yes, that already did, yeah.
I was just going to ask if the tutorial was shorter than the one in Knights in the Nightmare, which might be the longest tutorial I have ever seen.
Yeah, and there was 2 layers to it. There was the quick. You're like, oh, why? I wonder why they're calling this like this introductory tutorial. That's interesting. And then like there's a novel built into the game, but you kind of needed it with that game.
Yes. That's the longest tutorial I have ever seen.
I assure you, Mike, the Demon's Soul tutorial is not anywhere near that long. I mean, it's like maybe like 5 minutes long or something.
And it's a really I feel it's the perfect level of tutorial for a game that you don't want to ruin exactly what the game is trying to achieve by holding too much hand at the beginning. I think it settles you in just fine.
I would agree with that.
Well, I hate to say it, but we are just about out of time. So let me open the floor to any final miscellaneous questions from Chi or Brad or Mike. Anything else we want to ask Aram while we have him?
No, I just wanted to say thanks for the Persona PSP, because I was totally blown away by how cool it was as a fan of the original game back when it came out. It was nice to see the Snow Queen quest make a return finally for Americans, and the improved difficulty was nice too. So
when we all sat down around the table and we came to this, it wasn't done wrong the first time. No one believes that. But no one at our company now was involved on that project. But we did kind of have this attitude, like, here's our chance to address feedback, and things have changed in 12 years with regards to localization. We've done Persona 3, we've done Persona 4. We're down to a science now. Let's do it the way we do it if it came out today, and we were really excited, I think, to be able to do that.
Just for future reference, really quickly, Aram, though, I got to say, I do disagree with Mike in that I don't think the difficulty was better. I prefer the old difficulty. And in fact,
you wimp.
Yay, man! I got a wife, I got a kid, I got a job. I appreciate something that's not quite as hardcore. I mean, if it's warranted, great, but just a little bit more difficulty selection for people like me in the future.
But don't you know, Atlas is the company that gets off on our fans' tears. You didn't know that, Brad?
Yeah.
They're coming to you in a really big jug. So.
Hey, let me throw one last question at Aram. Actually, with Demon's Souls taking this really Western sensibility, is there I can almost see a lot of these Japanese developers obviously wanting to tailor their games to a more international audience. Is this a sort of a concern, or do you think this is a trend, and how do you think that's going to affect Atlas in the long term?
Well, that's a really that's an interesting question, and it's one that I really couldn't answer. I've read so many articles in recent months and even the last couple of years from Japanese developers talking about how where it seemed like at one point everything was coming from Japan, that there's so much new talent and growing talent in the West, and Europe. You've got developers now in Poland and they got Remedy and CD Projekt. Things are definitely changing in terms of there being a lot of amazing stuff coming internationally, all over the world, and I don't know if there. I know based on what I've read that there does seem to be this perception that it's important to take the Western audience into consideration when making a blockbuster game overseas. And you've got a lot of games. I love Capcom and I love Konami, and a lot of times it feels like they're making games that appeal to anyone. I think it's been that way for years. Will these kind of niche RPGs that some other publishers may not touch or want to touch, but it's our game, will those dry up? I don't believe so myself. Right. Personally, I don't think that changes in the industry dictate or mandate that the niche need to be kind of stomped or set aside. I think it's going to continue, but you're going to have a lot of growth at other ends of the spectrum.
Well, Aram Jabari, thank you so much for being on the show. Persona PSP on store shelves now. Demon's Souls for the PS3, October 6th. If folks want to find out more about you or Atlas or the games, where would you direct them?
For most things Atlas, www.atlas.com. We have a special site for Demon's Souls, www.demons-souls.com. And if anyone's wondering why it's demon''s, it's actually referring to the souls in possession of the one old one, as my understanding is, because a lot of people give us grief about why it's way to localize the game, Atlas, grammatically incorrect title. But yeah.
Fail.
Yeah, fail.
That's hilarious. I was kind of I thinking that, but I wasn't going to say it. But I'm glad you clarified that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we were going to save that reveal for the director's cut, but now I don't know what we're going to do for the commentary.
Well, Aram, thanks so much for coming on the podcast, and do come back anytime. We loved having you.
Thank you very much for having me, guys. I look forward to listening to it and cringing every time I hear myself speak.
Probably only
Later,
one
guys.
or two times. Thanks, Aram.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Aram.
And that will do it for this edition of the GameCritics.com podcast. Leave your feedback on our website or through Twitter. The handle is @GameCritics. Remember, you can subscribe to the show via the iTunes Music Store and the Zune Marketplace, or just stream it right off the GameCritics.com homepage. Our thanks again to Aram Jabari of Atlas. Remember, Demon's Souls hits store shelves on October 6th. And, of course, my thanks to Mike, Brad, and Chi. Thanks, guys.
Anytime.
Always a pleasure.
Ditto.
Well, that's all she wrote, folks. For now, I'm Tim Spaeth. Good night, and bon chance. Very nice. Any other questions? I have a completely random one that I may not even keep in the show, but I want to ask anyway.
Sure.
Aram, what do you think of or I guess it's over now, what did you think of the Persona 4 endurance run over at Giant Bomb?
Oh, we laughed about that a lot. I think I've said a bajillion times. I hate people that say too. We have followed that with so much amusement and curiosity. We have people in our office that are paid to play the game a lot, and not for enjoyment, but to find and quash as many bugs as they can. And to see, and it's flattering, it's touching, but to see people play it and go through the extra trouble of recording commentary and taping all of it and putting it online blows our mind. Persona 4 will stand as a benchmark for Atlas, I think, for a very long time in terms of, it's just a fantastically developed game from our parent company, but it was the whole package. It was just all I think we'll always look back on that one fondly. But to see it treated in such a way, in such a, we know it's out of love, but it's so interesting. It really is. And I actually personally, I love the stuff that they're doing over there. I think they've definitely found their groove, their enclave with. Who else is going to have the balls to do? What was it? 140 entries at the end of it? 100, something nuts,
something
wasn't it?
Like that,
and just, hours, and each of those things was like an hour long. I personally, it's a great way if you're actually interested in the game to watch the first little bit and actually know a little bit more about it. But it's for the hardcore fan. I think there are people who watch that who finished the game themselves. There must be, and talking about the social links that they maxed out, and it's crazy. I think it kind of stands as a testament to just how cool our fans are, and I guess that means that we have a few fans at Giant Bomb, which is, hopefully that never ends.